Yeah, and it's great to almost have the internet as an example of maybe what we're going through because people can kind of understand that. They remember the first experience of the internet was email, which wasn't, it was great, but it wasn't really the full dimensions of it. They remember the learning process. They remember the bull markets, the bear markets. So it's a nice potential parallel to what's going on here to explain to people. We've obviously had this mass adoption of technology via the internet and mobile, and now perhaps it's coming with exchanging value peer to peer. I worked in the banking sector for 15 years, Michael, and people don't understand how much of their life is a financial transaction that's literally controlled by someone else, and either the bank takes a massive part or the government controls it. And once they see that, I feel like we'll get to the next level. But like you said, it's early days, and that's why we're talking about this here. Michael, I want to ask you about Fantom, but I want to start off by maybe asking you about a common complaint that I get from my students. And now my students, I teach them in the DeFi Academy. It's like 4 weeks, and I basically just get them through all the DeFi protocols. So they start off sometimes not even having a cold or hot wallet. Then they're on Uniswap. Then they're on, Aave. Then I'm trying to get them to use these dexes so they learn by doing in small size, just so they have the experience and they realize, okay, it's a little different, but I just did it and it worked. The biggest complaint I get, Michael, is the gas fees. And I always tell them, guess what? The good news is it's a free market. We got tons of layer one solutions coming with some super smart people. When I look at this space and you look at the top 30 market caps in there, there's, among those 8 to 10 solid layer one plays that are going to change the game. But right now, people have to pay the gas. And you've even said that Ethereum's going to get slower. And I think you're right. Maybe speak about this common complaint we see. They say Ethereum is a victim of its own success. Obviously, because of it, we saw massive innovation in DeFi summer of 2020, 2021. But now it seems like people really are thirsting for a layer one solution. Your thoughts on gas, Ethereum, et cetera?
Yeah. So I mean, like gas fees function. It's basically like a pricing mechanism for like network demand, right? So like on the supply side, you've got like the network throughput, or like how many transactions can the network like handle within like a given period of time. Like for example, like within like a given second or two. And on the other side of that, on the demand side, you've got how many people want to submit transactions and the complexity of the transactions over the same period of time, right? So you got like supply and demand curves, and kind of the gas price is like, the price at which these two curves intersect, right? So it's very, very like simple kind of like supply and demand economics. That being said, like obviously like, how you make the network more scalable allows you to increase on the supply side, allows you to be able to have more throughput such that when there's an increased demand, the gas price doesn't go up or like stays the same, right? So like kind of the first thing to point out is that like Fantom's gas fees are like a fraction of they are on Ethereum. Like they're like 1/100th or sometimes like even 1/200th of the total gas price for Ethereum, and that's even when the Fantom is doing similar, if not on a few occasions, more transactions on the Ethereum network. So that in itself just tells you the network is a lot more scalable. Because if you can do the same number of transactions or more than another network, and your fees are a fraction of it, that means that your network is able to process more transactions in a more scalable manner. That being said, what we're currently working on, which is why I kind of said earlier on in the conversation, the technology is not quite there yet, is, we still need to work on more scalability, more scalable solutions. And, what's going to happen imminently with Fantom is that we have this technology coming out that kind of like prunes or compresses the amount of data you need to store in order to process transactions by maybe by like 80 to 90%. And so that should allow us to kind of like increase the gas per second for the network. So increase the network throughput for the system, hopefully by like a factor of like 2 to 3 times, right? And so if we have that increase in network throughput by that amount, then all other things being equal, the gas price should be lowered for a given amount of transactions. So I think the gas price over time will progressively get lower as the network becomes more scalable. So the first thing I want to kind of point out is that, there are gas fees. There will always be gas fees because there has to be a way of incentivizing the validators to process your transactions. So just like when you go to a store and you pay like with Visa or MasterCard, you do any sorts of payments, those payment companies don't exist and are not worth, tens of billions of dollars, because they're like giving a service for free. They get compensated whether it's coming from the purchaser or the merchant, they're getting a share of the transaction fees. So it's kind of the same thing with blockchain technologies. However, the more scalable we make it and the more adoption we get, the more the fee, the more the aggregate fees for the validators will increase, but the cost per user will decrease over time. So that's what we're really aiming for at the moment. And so, we've got some like technology improvements that are coming imminently, maybe in like a month or two, and more longer term, we've got other ideas that we're working on, like sharding and other things that will hopefully, make the system more scalable. And, why I'm kind of like really, really optimistic about the demand of blockchains going up a lot higher is that you kind of have seen on Ethereum, as you mentioned, like a victim of its own success. I think that that's quite true. So, I think a lot more people would be using Ethereum if the gas prices were a lot lower. But the reason why the gas prices are that high is was there's immense demand to use Ethereum and use all the applications that are on Ethereum, but the system isn't that scalable. And so the fees have to adjust higher, and they are kind of working on a few technology solutions, but we're not really sure if they're going to be able to work in the end or how long they're going to take. And even then, I think the technology has a limit in how much it can scale up because they process transactions in what's known as a synchronous manner. In other words, they process transactions one at a time and they get mined into a block. Whereas for Fantom, and what really makes the Fantom technology different from, say, Ethereum, is that you process transactions as they enter into the network. It's what's known as asynchronous technologies. In other words, as soon as a transaction gets entered into the network, it gets passed around and validated by the network. There's no waiting for the next block to be mined. There's no queuing of transactions or anything like that. And that's kind of the different technology that makes Fantom a lot faster and cheaper than it currently is compared to, say, like Ethereum.